The bus hissed to a stop in front of nothing but fog and fence posts. Eliza stepped off with a single duffel bag and a silence that had grown too big for her to carry. 15 years old, orphaned 4 weeks ago, and now standing at the edge of her grandfather's farm, a place she'd never been, owned by a man she barely knew. No one came to greet her. Before we begin this powerful tale of silence and sacrifice, tell me in the comments what was your first dog's name and breed. You can help stories like this be heard, remembered, and shared. If this one touches your heart, like the video and don't forget to follow for more true feeling stories of healing, loyalty, and quiet courage. Sometimes the strongest voices are the ones that never speak, and sometimes they bark. She walked down the gravel path alone, the wheels of her bag bumping over uneven stone. The field stretched quiet and empty. At the edge of the property, just beyond the garden, stood a sagging red barn with a collapsed corner and a fence like broken ribs curling around it. She saw movement, a dark shape, massive, just inside the shadows of the barn's open door. She slowed and stared. It was a dog, a German shepherd, chained to a post in the dirt, eyes glowing faint amber, still, silent, watching. You stay away from that barn. Her grandfather's voice cut through the quiet later that evening, just after supper. He didn't look at her when he said it, just stared out the window with a half-drained mug of black coffee in his hand. That dog's dangerous, should have been put down years ago, but he's all that's left of what used to be. Eliza didn't respond. She wasn't the kind of girl who asked questions anymore. She hadn't been since the accident. But in her chest, the image of the chained dog pulsed like a bruise. Not dangerous, just forgotten. The next morning, while her grandfather fed the chickens, Eliza slipped back to the barn. She didn't cross the fence, just stood outside it with a scrap of toast she hadn't eaten. The dog didn't bark, didn't growl, just looked at her. His coat was dirty, matted in places. One of his ears had a tear near the edge, and there was something else, a jagged scar along his shoulder, half hidden under fur. Eliza knelt and slid the toast under the gate. "You're not going to hurt me," she whispered. The dog didn't move, but his eyes didn't leave hers. By the third day she brought a name with her. "Shadow," she said softly. "You look like a shadow." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, hope, or just memory of the name he hadn't heard in years. He stepped forward, slowly, took the food from her hand gently, like he'd been waiting a very long time to be trusted again. That night, Eliza found an old photo in her mother's things. A boy, maybe 10 years old, grinning in a sunlit field. In his arms, a German shepherd puppy. The boy was her father. The puppy wore a tag that read, "Shadow." She stared at the picture for a long time, then slipped it into her jacket pocket. The fourth morning, she asked her grandfather straight out, "Was that Dad's dog?" He froze in the kitchen doorway. "The fire changed him," he said finally. "Your father ran back into that barn for the animals. Only one came out." He didn't say the dog's name, didn't need to. Eliza returned to the barn with the photo in hand. She slid it across the ground toward Shadow. He padded forward, sat down, looked at it. Then very slowly, he lowered one paw and rested it over the image. Her breath caught. "You remembered," she whispered. And in that moment, Eliza knew he hadn't just survived the fire, he'd been waiting. Shadow began waiting for her. Every morning, before chores, before words, Eliza crept toward the barn, and there he'd be, sitting tall, ears forward, as if he'd never moved all night. The chain around his neck was thick, old, bolted to the concrete floor like a secret too heavy to bury. But in the spaces between, something unchained was building. She fed him scraps, toast, eggs, slices of apple, brushed the tangles from his coat, whispered stories she didn't know how to tell anyone else. And Shadow listened, not like a dog, like someone who remembered. The photo never left her pocket. Her father, 10 years old, sun in his eyes, arms wrapped around a floppy-eared puppy, Shadow, her father's first and last dog, the one who went into the fire, the one who came out alone, and was chained ever since. One afternoon, while Eliza sat beside the fence brushing Shadow's fur, her grandfather's voice boomed across the yard. "You've been going to the barn." Eliza froze. He walked toward her, steps slow, face unreadable. "I told you that animal's not safe." "He's not dangerous," she said quietly. Her grandfather's jaw tightened. "He bit someone. After the fire. Went wild. Took 3 of us to catch him. And I'm the one who fed him when no one else would." "Why didn't you let him go?" His eyes shifted. "I couldn't look at him without remembering. Without seeing your father. That night." He stopped himself, voice fraying. "I lost my son. I didn't want to lose the memory of him too. Shadow was the only thing left, but it hurt to see him, so I chained him up." Eliza looked down. He waited anyway. The next day, a white county vehicle pulled into the driveway. Eliza watched from the porch as a woman in a tan vest stepped out. The badge on her chest read, "Animal Welfare Services." She greeted Eliza's grandfather with a calm smile. "We've had a few reports of long-term tethering on the property. Mind if I take a look?" Eliza felt her stomach twist. "Reports." She followed as the woman was led to the barn. The moment Shadow came into view, massive, scarred, silent, the woman stopped. She stared, then crouched slowly at a distance. "How long has he been chained like this?" she asked. Her grandfather sighed. "Since the fire. He's old now. We've kept him fed, safe. He has no shelter, no range of movement. You know that's illegal in this county, right?" "He's never been aggressive," Eliza cut in. "He's gentle. He remembers everything." The woman studied her for a long moment. "I can see he's been cared for. But this chain, it's not care, it's containment." She stood. "I'm filing a warning. You've got 1 week to fix this. Proper enclosure, shelter, free movement, or he'll be removed from the property." Eliza's chest tightened. "Taken where?" "Probably a shelter, maybe a sanctuary if you're lucky. But he's old, and they don't always place out dogs with bite records." She didn't say the word, but Eliza heard it anyway. "Put down." That night, Eliza sat beside Shadow in the barn, the chain between them cold and loud. "They'll take you if we don't do something," she whispered. Shadow didn't move, didn't look away, just pressed his head softly into her hand. For the first time, Eliza cried. Not for her parents, not for herself, for him. For the years he spent in silence, punished for surviving. The next morning, her grandfather stood on the porch with a shovel. "Well," he muttered, "looks like we've got fence posts to dig." The fence took 3 days to build. Eliza helped hammer every post into the thawing earth. Her grandfather said little, but he didn't stop her either. Sometimes, that was enough. When they finished, she opened the gate and unlatched the chain. Shadow stood at the threshold for a moment, like he didn't quite believe it. Then he stepped forward. No leash, no tether, just grass under his paws and sky above his back. He sniffed the corners of the new enclosure, turned once, and lay down in the sun, free. But he didn't run. He stayed. Eliza visited him every morning. Shadow came to meet her at the gate, now tail low but wagging. His limp was more visible in the open, a quiet reminder of the fire that had shaped both of them. Some days she read to him, other days she just sat beside him in silence. It wasn't healing in the usual sense. It was deeper than that. Like something that had been still for too long was finally breathing again. A week later, the sky changed. It started with stillness, unnatural, too quiet. Birds disappeared. The wind dropped. Then came the heat, dry, sharp, electric. That night, lightning lit up the sky in violent streaks, and just after midnight, smoke touched the edge of Eliza's dreams. She bolted upright. Shadow. She ran barefoot through the yard, heart pounding. Her grandfather met her at the back door, already pulling on his boots. It hit the east field, he said. Tree took a wire down. The pasture was glowing orange. Fire ate through the dry grass in twitching lines, and on the far side, near the collapsed storage shed, a small figure cowered in the weeds, a puppy, alone. Shadow was already barking from the gate. Frantic. "I'll go," Eliza said. Her grandfather grabbed her arm. "No, we'll both go." They moved fast, blankets soaked in water, a hose dragging behind them. Eliza spotted the puppy trembling behind a fallen board, whimpering. She dropped to her knees, crawled forward, and reached for it. A sharp crack split the air. A burning beam above her gave way. Shadow launched forward. No hesitation, no calculation. He shoved into the gap, wedging himself between her and the falling debris. The board hit his back and rolled off. Eliza scrambled out with the puppy in her arms. Shadow followed, slower, limping harder, but he never looked away from her. Back at the house, they laid the puppy in a towel and poured water into a shallow bowl. It shook, coughed once, then curled into sleep. Shadow collapsed beside it, chest rising and falling in heavy, even beats. Eliza pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "You came back for me." His amber eyes, dulled by smoke and age, still held light, and something else. Peace. He passed quietly that night, under the porch, where he always waited, facing east, toward the field where he'd once made a choice, where he'd stayed. They buried him under the old oak tree beside the barn. Her grandfather carved the marker by hand. Shadow, he stayed. 2008, 2023, loyal to the very end. Neighbors came, even the woman from animal welfare. Some brought flowers. One child brought a drawing of Shadow with angel wings. "He's the bravest dog I ever heard of," the boy said, and no one disagreed. The barn became something else after that. Not haunted, not forbidden, just quiet. Eliza cleaned it out, hung the photo of her dad and puppy Shadow above the doorway, left Shadow's collar by the window, where the morning sun could reach it. People started calling it the Whispering Barn. Some said it was because of the wind, others, because the story stayed alive there. One evening her grandfather joined her on the porch. He handed her a small notebook, leather-bound, weather-worn. "Your dad used to write in this when he was your age." She opened it. On the first page, in childish scrawl, "Shadow followed me again today. I think he understands everything." Tears welled in her eyes. "I think he did," she whispered. They sat in silence, the sky slowly bruising with sunset. Later, as Eliza stood by the fence one last time, she felt the breeze pass through the barn, a low creak from the roof, a flutter of leaves, and for a moment, just a moment, she could hear it. A whisper, a paw step, a promise. Some heroes never leave, they just wait for someone to remember.